So this, this recording and transcribing and everything will be there within this Zoom. So you might, I don't know.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Apologies for the earlier hiccup with different Zoom links, but absolutely wonderful to have everybody here today. Welcome to our third research mentoring series. So the focus of our topic today is around dissemination. And we know that traditionally we look at, peer-reviewed journals, and that's another topic coming up. But today we're going to focus on dissemination channels and options around conferences, symposiums, forums, or whether it's workshops or events or community of practices. And as part of our series, we have 5 topics in that. And we have Kate, myself, Kashmira, and we also have Keith, who's unfortunately unable to join us today. But the key thing around this research mentoring series is it caters for an introduction to research. So in the third space area, whether you're a professional staff member or whether you're an early career academic moving into that particular discipline or career and wanting to know what is research all about around that. So we have a series of topics. Today's focus is on dissemination around conferences, symposiums, forums, etc. But before we go into that, just a bit of a plug on our end. Our Learning Design Special Interest Group is one of the special interest groups across our Ascolite association. So between Kashmir, myself, Keith, and Kate, we lead this particular group. We have I think we're up to around 1,700 members within our LinkedIn page. Please feel free to join that. Build valuable connections. That's where we advertise our events, activities, and also recordings that we have in there. Feel free to share your practices, any research or maybe any practices that you have in there. And from time to time, there are job opportunities from various different members within the group that share within there as well. Ascolite conference is coming up, should be 2026 up in Brisbane this year. And I believe call for papers are at the moment open and there's another week or 2 left to go. So keep that in mind whilst you're in this webinar. But before we begin, I would like to recognise the traditional owners and Indigenous cultures where we're here today. So paying our respects to our elders past and present and also emerging and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Also, please do feel free to make any comments, remarks in terms of where you're traditionally from and the lands in which you're from in our comments area there as well. Okay, so today we've got myself, Kate, and Kashmira talking to you about dissemination. There will be a series of questions. We like to keep our sessions quite laid back and conversational, and we recognise that there are, I'm just looking at the list, I think a lot of you, I recognise in terms of names as well, because it's quite a small niche kind of area in the third space. We recognise there are different skills, capabilities, and values and experiences across the group, across the whole industry discipline. So do feel free to make comments, support, and ask questions along the way. We'll also be monitoring the chat and there will be opportunities for questions as well. We've got a set of questions and I'm going to go ahead and ask them. But please do feel free to be actively engaged because we're here to support each other and uplift each other in this third space, learning design space as well. All right, wonderful. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone, if that's all right. Okay, let's go. Let's stop sharing. So hopefully I've stopped sharing. If not, give me 1 second. If not, can someone stop sharing for me? Because I'm only using one screen at the moment, one laptop. Okay. I think the first question that I've got, and I've kind of keen to ask this of Kashmira and also Kate as well, is why should we as third space individuals, right, or groups or cohorts, whether you're an academic or whether you're a professional working in this space, why should we be sharing our work? I think just going back to the basics around that.
Kate, you want to go first because it more applies to you than I? We can't hear you, Kate.
Sorry, I'm trying to multitask.
Sorry. Okay,
Um,
so no problem. I'll go first. So I think the biggest thing in my opinion is that we do on the under the third space umbrella, there will be no larger variety of skills and people that under one umbrella that any other category has. So for example, if you go academics or any other, you will not have any of that variety of skills. And one of the reason is that they all come from different background. And they come from different background because there is no defined place or criteria for who can be third space professional or learning designer. And so what I'm trying to say is that we don't speak the same language. And many papers and like scholarly articles, if you see around third space, you will see that people write around identity and having a coherent language to have for us. And that is not just to understand each other, it is also our identity. It is also a message to universities and the higher education institution that this is what we need and here is what we are, who we are. So those are like, I think those are some questions that is not directly related to dissemination, but it is collectively creates identity that we as third space professional need. That's one thing. Sharing creates synergy. And that also again goes to that coordination, collaboration, and coherent understanding of the ideas that we largely discuss. Um, there are other few things that are kind of like you can, because we are not um, officially having any kind of research load, what we do, no matter how fantastic it is, it largely stays within the institution and it is invisible. So gaining that connection and visibility across the sector is something that is like really crucial for a third space professional. And therefore, sharing is one of the ways that you can make work visible and share the work of fantastic work that we do. And again, I mean, I'm sure Leanne will talk more about it, but and that is precisely the reason why we have our open education resource, so that people who have like no ability or no time to write academic papers, they can still write their practices and we can share it across the sector. So we already have one chapter done and we are doing the another one very shortly. So that is, that are like few reasons, but I'm sure Kate has something to add into what I said.
Hi. Yes. I'm going to put the questions up. I think, I think that, uh, and sorry, I've been trying to like updates because we had a couple of links circulating. I, I think just being able to be in the space to, further the field, share practice with others, learn from others. They're all reasons I, um, work in this space. Because I think it's quite, it can be a bit of a lonely space. There can, people can often be in um, contract-based or insecure roles. So just being able to, and I think also just there's a lot of instances where, academic research, people assume it's for particular people. And, if you're not if you haven't got a PhD, you kind of feel like, oh, well, am I allowed to be in that space? Which isn't true because everybody can do research. Obviously there are things around getting ethics which are different, but, the assumption that's not everyone can do research, I think is a really, problematic space. Um, so, and that means that if only certain people are doing the research, then there's areas of research that are undiscovered or not well understood, or research that is being done about the people that doesn't involve the people that relates to or affects. And so I think those are all kind of reasons I think about. I don't know if that answers the question.
Mm. No, I think that's fantastic. I think what both you and Kashmira mentioned about, I think around building synergies, connecting, making visible the work that we do in that space. And also, I think you touched upon could be quite isolating. And I saw a lot of heads nodding when that came up as well, and given in I'm sure it's across many different industries and higher education, restructures, major work restructures, casuals, contracts. I think I saw a lot of heads nodding in that area, and why we should go into, sharing our work further. And I think this lends to the next question really well. What counts as something worth sharing, right? We do, and I can tell you right now, we do fabulous work. All right, but let's unpack that a bit further around what counts as something worth sharing, and part of your experiences, your connections, what you've made visible as well. And look, this question is towards Kashmira and Kate as well, but this is also to everyone. Please do feel free to share your ideas either within the chat area, and we'll unpack that a bit further.
Mm. I think so. I was while Kate was responding to the first question, I also remembered that I wanted to add into the first question that why we
Mm.
should share is because to take feedback on work in progress. So if you're working on a project and you think, oh, whether I should or shouldn't do this, what is it like? So those are the kind of thing, if you present work in progress, you can seek feedback from the wider community. So that's my another additional like delta X from the previous one. Um, what what is worth sharing? Um, so my first response to that is that be bold. Um, I want to ask, like, is it, does it any time like happen to you that you are in your university or in like a forum such as AskLite or like in conferences, small or big symposiums, and people get awarded, and then somebody says, "Oh, they are awarded because they have done this, and this," and you sitting in audience thinking, "Goodness, I'm doing it for past 10 years." Now, why is it that they are recognized and you weren't, even though you're doing probably the same or better job? Is just because, and because that's like a very small group, I can tell you the secret. That's my story. I felt like this so many times, and I was whinging about it to someone um who is in this forum now, my friend and mentor Leanne, and she said, "Oh, you have to be out there before, like you have to apply for it. Then you get like they will not be going kind of, you're not like a Nobel Prize winner, like people will seek your, where you are and what you do." So just, so what is worth sharing is any formal research that you have done. But if you have not done formal research, that doesn't mean you don't have anything to share. So I think there is a big push around practice-based contributions. So talk about, any practice that worked in your context. Also, you can do a comparison. So like in my context, what I did is this, but in similar context, X person or X research did this, and this is how it is different. So you can do that as well. You can also write about case studies, which is less formal, and many journals also accept case study as a form of publication. So you can do that. Conferences are a better place for something like lesson learned. So you say, okay, this was the new project. There were so many unknowns, moving parts in this, and this is how we as a team or me as a person tackled that. This is what I learned. This is something that worked, and this is something that did not work. One of the things that is less common, but I think it's worth sharing, is your unsuccessful stories. So the things that did not work for you, and you have analyzed and say, yes, this is what I assumed that will happen. And then now that it didn't work in my context, this is what I think why it didn't. And I don't see, like, um, in many journals or in conferences, this kind of stories are shared. Why I am saying it is important to share your success, like, the story of, what lesson you learned from something that did not work is important, because there is a stigma around everything that you do has to be a success. But people learn more from not being successful to being successful. And again, I can tell you that's my experience. I learned way more in things that endeavors that was a complete failure for in my life is, uh, given me more to learn than something that like came through as a success. So those are the things. So lesson learned, or any innovation, however small it is, if you have any innovation or practice, or that, because we don't directly work with students, but what intervention or a small problem that you solve for academics that has improved students' outcome, those are all worth sharing.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you for sharing. That was really, yeah, really wonderful. I might pass it on to Kate.
Sure. I mean, I think Kashmir covered probably everything I would want to say, so I'll keep it very brief. I mean, I think if we're talking about conferences, as our main kind of like for today is the main dissemination point, um, like both smaller and larger scale stuff can, will fit conferences. And you can be strategic about using your conferences as the sounding board for then putting your meaty stuff in kind of research publications and journals, because you don't want to give all your best ideas unless you can then maybe cite it later. Or you want other people to be able to cite it later. So, be strategic about, I guess, what stuff you give away. But, use it as a chance to, connect with people, further the field where you can, get feedback where you can. Um, and I can see there's a couple of queries that are really useful, and I'll try and see if I can grab some journals just to answer one of the chat questions. So, I think like what counts as something that's worth sharing is really like, it's kind of like a how long is a piece of string question, because, if it's of interest to you, and you can frame it in the right way, and you found a good home for it, it's probably going to interest somebody else. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and there's a lot of stuff out there, honestly, like just to, I guess, also just give a positive that, I think being peer reviewing for conferences and especially conferences, because I always want peer reviewers and it's usually pretty low barrier to entry. Being a peer reviewer or editor for a journal is obviously a slightly different thing, but you can also do that. But peer reviewing stuff for conferences gives you a really good sense of like what, dare I say, what is the competition like? But, and I see some pretty variable stuff. Do you know what I mean? And so it makes me feel better sometimes, obviously. And it also is then a really good chance to go, oh, like I've read this really cool thing and that's really interesting. And I want to see that approved for the conference because now I want to go and hear more about it. So it's a really good chance to see like how do people frame things, what kinds of things get up. I see so much of all kinds. When we're talking about conferences as well, you've got, like different conferences will have different formats, but a lot of them will accept different types of submissions. So a full paper, which is a bit more like a journal article, a short paper, which can be a little bit more work in progress, especially if you're partway through something, or it's a conceptual paper where maybe you're saying like, here's a theory that I have, or here's something that I'm currently about to start working on, and here's kind of the current context and the methodology behind it and why it's important, and here's like some of the early stuff around it. It could be a small case study with a teaching team or a small or a cohort, or it could be a poster presentation, which can be kind of sit anywhere amongst all of those, right? HERDs are also accept what do you call it? Those like roundtable discussions, which is often like if you have kind of an idea for something, but it's not really fully fleshed out or fully formed, and and you really kind of want to get feedback from others around a particular topic, or present maybe some kind of resource that you're working on and get feedback on it. It's a really good place to showcase that, and they are often, looking, if you put something in that maybe doesn't fit another thing, they'll often offer that as the kind of next option. And then other places will have like pecha kuchas, where if you really are kind of unsure where to start and you want something low stakes, maybe not too long, doesn't require kind of peer review to the same extent, you can kind of put in those really short sort of lightning talk or pecha kucha style ones as well in some conferences. So there's like a really good range of options there in terms of, it doesn't have to be big. It can be big or small, and you just find where that might fit.
Yeah, and Zubin, I think your question in the chat, that would be like covered in next few questions, I guess. Yes, Leanne?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like both of you, like in terms of, and I think both of you know me, and those who know me, I'm gonna say this again. I'm just look, everything that we do, and I have a huge supporter of every single individual, whether you're third space, professional, academic, or depending on whether you're whatever hue level, whatever academic level, etc. Across that, I believe everyone is a leader in their own right, a leader in your particular area of discipline, the work, the practices that you do. There is always something worth sharing in that particular area. And I think and one of the important things around this is trying to get it out there and leading in that particular space, whatever work that you're doing. And Kashmira mentioned quite an interesting one, sharing lessons learned, things that have stuffed up along the way. We would love to hear that, because sometimes we're working on a lot of things. We want to save time and then on the day as well with that. But certainly, there are so many opportunities, the initiatives, the case studies, the innovations, whether it's small or big. But sometimes one of the litmus tests that I kind of look at is when you look at what you're doing, can it be adopted or adapted by other people, whether in various different disciplines? Some of you may work within a central team or maybe within a particular discipline. Can it be shared? Can it be adapted and then adopted on a wider scale, etc., across that? Is it worth looking at what others, value that? And this leads to the next question around, all right, and Kate has gone on quite a lot about this and the various different types of dissemination channels around this. We talk about conferences, that's probably one of the most obvious ones. But there are various different types of forums for this. Like, for example, this webinar series, a lot of the special interest groups that we have are part of AskLight, and yes, there are many other associations out there where there's opportunities to share your work, whether it's webinars, panels, etc. But there are many different channels that are out there. But how do we choose the right one? And how do we get in? How do we know around all of this? So I think, Kate, you've mentioned quite a bit, but I just wanted to see whether you wanted to add anything more, Kashmir or Kate, to this.
Yeah, I think I do, because it's like it's not about uh, what is available for sharing. It is about what is the right place, and that comes from my experience, because we have people criticize AJET for like, okay, only 1.5% success rate, but many of the articles that is submitted that is straight away rejected is just because they don't understand that the journal is for technology. So if you put anything that is not technology or not and not higher education, it will be a straight reject, no matter how fantastic the research is. So you have to see. So I have some ideas to share around how do you choose the right form, or like dissemination channel, if in at large, is whatever that you want to share. Just the first question to ask is, who is your audience? Who is it for? So if it is for academics, then you go for any third space or applied journals, they will not see or the value it. And where you see, like, where are the whatever your audience is, where they are most. So, for example, if you want to do or share something around um, an innovative practice in learning design, Askilite is a good place because you know that most of your audience will be around learning design or that kind of people. So, first of all, you have to because any successful publications, I mean, whether it's formal or informal with DOI or without it, um, people are interested only if it is written for a particular audience. So just think about your audience. Also consider the nature of your work. If it is a completed study or a practice or innovation, then it can go into some other kind of journals or publications then if it is work in progress. So what work you have done, where are you up to in the level where what you want to share, that also matters. I also think that you have to think about the goals. So, what do you want to achieve out of that sharing? So, if you're sharing, let's say, work in progress, then your goal is to kind of seek feedback, seek collaboration, or let's say if I'm thinking about like just a proposal, like a great idea, but I can't do it all by myself. So, I'm thinking, okay, who can collaborate with me? Okay, so you think that, okay, maybe learning design professionals. So where do you go and talk about it? Go in like, special interest groups such as this one, Askilite, um, some blogs, right? And ask for, your collaboration or something. So what is your goal? That also is something that you need to consider. Also, formality of the channel. So some channels, like for example, someone comes here and say, oh, I want to talk about my chemistry research. We will allow that? Probably not. Not because that research is not good. It's just that this particular forum is for particular audience. So you have to think about what sort of like the channel, whatever it is, the journal, the conference, the forum, blog, whatever is what it meant to do and what is the formality, and are you kind of like matching that theme. Also, it is about the accessibility. I mean, I just think because if you you publish something in a paid journal behind the login, most people will not read it, even if it is fantastic. So if you want wider, go open access, uh, and that we like open access. And also use sharing with like people through multiple channels. So for example, let's say one journal has accepted whatever that you have sent to them, but just don't stop there. Write summaries of their in LinkedIn or in blogs or wherever you want to record yourself, how that idea came up to you, put it on YouTube, share the link, things like that. So use multiple channel and share it. So these are some few things that you can kind of like keep in mind selecting or choosing the right dissemination channel.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kashmira. So know your audience, the nature of your work, and what kind of intended purpose you want, whether you're looking at seeking feedback. Know the audience, the channel really well. Kate, do you want to add anything else to this?
Yeah, I
Yes. You do.
only because like I probably work the other way around a little bit, and I'm really conscious that that's like that can be um also a valid way to go in that some other things I do, like obviously, Kashmir and I do lots of stuff together and she's great but like often what happens is that I'll see something and go, oh, like I like the sound of that thing. Can I write something that will fit that thing? Like sometimes you start with, oh, I've got a topic idea or I've got something that I want to document. And then I've got to find a home for it. The other way is, oh, I can see these homes for things that align with my interests. Have I got something that I can frame to go in there or build to go in there? And so I think just recognizing that both of those can work.
Mm.
Obviously, you still need to do that work to kind of figure out the target audience and frame it in the right way and shape it to that. But, you know, it means you also kind of have to be a little bit flexible to go, okay, maybe I have got these great ideas and I look at like how I want to keep them the way I want to keep them and put them and then choose a format that allows me to do that. Other times it might be, oh, actually, I've got this idea. Thanks, Ashley. I've got this idea, and then something comes along that you go, oh, like could I maybe like rejig this to actually maybe take a little bit of this thing and then like put it in this other direction. So, and often it means that the ideas kind of get a little bit morphed, but that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like it still is valid and useful. So, and I guess in terms of like attracting both those things, sometimes it's then going, okay, how do I want to kind of get my ideas out there in maybe informal channels like a blog post, webinars, that sort of thing, because that way I can kind of shape what I'm working on. I might do that behind the scenes by like at the moment I'm writing out like I sometimes do like literature reviews, kind of my own literature reviews to make sense of the stuff that's happening. So like assuring learning and academic integrity at the moment. I'm just trying to get my head around how do these bits fit together and how can I conceptualize these more as frameworks and how can
Mm.
then we kind of use that to offer up, things in our team. And so for me, I kind of then use that as a chance to go, I just need to make sense of the literature. I'm going to write something, but it doesn't have a home. But then I might share that with other people to get feedback, mostly because it helps my thinking. And then if I want to do something with that, great. And if not, it can kind of sit there as like literature work that I've done that might be useful at another time. But it's helped me formulate ideas. There's other times where, I've done work and then, Kashmir and I will see a forum come up, like whether that's H5P or Ascalite or, somewhere else. And then we'll go, oh, okay, like how can we frame this maybe to bring, say, the thing that they want, but also then like shoehorn universal design for learning or accessibility or learning design strategies or something else into it that maybe is going to fit. So and in that case it's often also just about being like knowing where you can find out about what's happening. So LinkedIn, I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn. I usually subscribe to a few particular journals that are relevant and look out for special issues because I find special issues are usually really cool. I'm part of a few different special interest groups, and often people will send out calls, expressions of interest or calls for papers for things through those channels. So finding kind of topic areas that you like where you might hear about stuff can also just be really useful. So sorry, I don't know. Sorry, that was a little bit of a side tangent, Leanne.
Mm. No, I mean it goes to show that so many ideas and various practices, initiatives that's going on at the same time as well. And I think it leads to the next question really well. Like, and I'm happy to open this to the floor as well. What are barriers, stopping you, from sharing your work? And how can we go about overcoming it? So I'm happy to open the floor, but I'm also happy for, Kashmir or Kate, maybe you can think back on an example, maybe share it with the group or something, but happy to open the floor.
Yeah, if anybody from the audience, like I mean, we are very small groups, so we can be like really informal and talk. Um,
I
then
think the main one is always time. I think, sort of making time for it, making sure that yes, I stick to a disciplined time of doing it because everything else seems to be, coming over the top and urgent. And also, and I have this problem with staff I work with because I'm in a central learning and teaching unit, is people not knowing, what is good enough to present or what is subtle or, what does it look like? So I deliver the graduate certificate in higher education at the moment, and I'm marking assignments where people had to come up with an evaluation strategy for a subject they've redesigned.
Mm.
And it's interesting, I've gone back, I mean, these people have PhDs, but they can't understand how to do research for a subject that they teach. It's
Mm.
actually fascinating to me. I mean, you may already know this, but this is sort of new to me.
Mm.
So, I think it might be something across the board that people struggle with when it comes to learning and teaching is, what is research, what is knowledge that we can share, and how do we do it?
And that's why we have this, research
Mm,
mentoring, and part of that is this series. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Can
that's
you?
Yeah,
Uh,
thanks, Kate. I think that's really interesting what you're saying, Sue.
Mm,
And I'm in a faculty embedded central team.
right, right.
So yes, centrally funded but embedded, just working with the one faculty. But it's still that third space, if you like. It is an academic role, but the roles might have heavy service, expectations,
Yes.
you know.
Mm,
And so it resonated with me what you were saying about making the time.
mm.
And quietly in the background, I was like going, what do they want me to fix up in that ethic? So I am in that privileged position of being able to submit ethics and receive feedback and try again. Um, and in terms of the graduate certificate, was it of the teaching and learning or higher education?
Higher
Um,
education. Mm,
yeah, so I've completed the equivalent at my institution as well, and I think that that course is very worthwhile for people to actually think about that subtle space and how do I research my own practice. And so we're getting into that discussing the practitioner research.
mm.
And people might think of even practitioner research, well, from their own other discipline, not so much from that education as a practitioner. So that
Yeah,
might be, my practice in their specialty area. But then thinking about yourself as a practitioner of education when it's not your area, I think that's what you're getting to, Sue, on
yeah,
it's a new concept for people to think about their practice being that teaching.
yeah,
And but it's more a space that we might be more comfortable in
yeah,
when we are looking at the education of, well, the ultimate education outcome of our students and learners in our institutions, but we also consider the academics we work with as supporting their learning
yeah.
in various forms and formats in terms of building capacity or support or even just connecting people with
Mm,
people and
mm.
and who knows things that they need to know. Um, yeah, so in terms of the barriers, I think those personal barriers of just time management and role management, that's a very real thing to manage, to actually have that at the top of my list today to address that in the
Yeah,
multitude of things. I could choose to do all of the outstanding things for the curriculum committee that's only on my head too.
mm,
But today's the day to actually choose and carve out the time to say, well, I did enough of that already this week and the load's too big, so it's going to have to pause for a moment while I actually do this aspect of prioritizing research in my context. So I think that's a huge barrier, and I think you have to take responsibility for yourself, would you say, in this,
mm,
insofar as you can, in terms of, having your manager support um, for your work and what you're doing as well. But if you do have that ability to have some time allocated to this,
mm,
then well, it's my fault if I don't do it. So that kind of, I think that is a kind of personal growth element to say I'm responsible for this, rather than keep going with excuses of, but there's too many other things to do and people are waiting on me. And maybe the research is so important, as Kashmira was saying, that it's our responsibility to also prioritize that the people are waiting to hear about our research or our practice
mm,
stories.
mm. I think
May I ask?
sure.
Sorry. This is just a question for the with the experts here as well. Because in my role as a learning designer, I do interact with a lot of staff members, especially when we're piloting new products and also very innovative practices. but we kind of have a lot of discussions and I'm just going to use the word data here. And it might be through teams or it can be through self-reflections, etc. But that's data. And then in our current institution, let's say we may not have ethics clearances, and technically the data that I've already used cannot be used for research purposes. How do I address that then?
Huge problem because this is what I'm facing too. Even when the research is only on myself, you know, it's a huge thing. And so I think we do have to just keep making the connections, the relationships, and doing the work to actually set some of those up as research with ethics and keep pushing ourselves to learn that part of the process if necessary. Or I don't know what others want to say about it in terms of how much, in what way can case studies or things actually be published without it. That's a tricky one because I don't feel comfortable to go very far in that kind of thing when my institution's saying, well, even if you're kind of researching yourself, it's got to go through the ethics. So, so I have managed to do research partnering with a unit chair on a redesign where it was set up to actually get student feedback and things like that. And the redesign was, we're going to get feedback on a redesign of a unit. And it takes a lot of time and it is a lot of work, but the outcome is very rewarding. And that resulted in a full paper at Ascalite and and a full paper conference presentation, and it took about 2 years to achieve that. But I think it's worth thanks. That's I felt really proud of that and it was a good milestone to reach. Yeah.
So may I ask you a question? Are you leading a team?
Who's the question to?
Sorry, I'm asking Zubin. Are you leading a team?
Oh, mute.
You're on mute.
I did it again. Sorry. Yes, I do lead several teams in different colleges. So
Yeah.
there's that power issue as well, which kind of makes it more than low risk application, I guess.
So why I asked you is that because I was listening to your question and this could what I'm going to say, it could vary university to university, but when you are leading the whole like a team where there are all people similar to yourself, like a learning designer or like, and so I think that's related to you as well because you are also leading a team. You can have something called umbrella ethics. So you go to ethics committee and say, here is what usually we do. So we look after learning management system. We do this, we do that, and and then tell them that this part of data, which is automatically generated or metadata, is something that we will be using anonymized, and then you can convince them how you are going to anonymize because that will be a big concern. But you can say, and you are more likely to get the approval for that kind of umbrella ethics centralized, which covers whole of your team. When you tell ethics committee that knowing about this, and this, or analyzing this, and this data is aligning with your university's strategic priorities. So if you do that and go ahead and have that umbrella ethics, then everything that you and your team do for like that 1 year or whatever is, because you can't have retrospective ethics. That is way more difficult, and it never ever happens. In case of like very rare circumstances, it does, but it doesn't usually.
No.
So every year you start with that umbrella ethics. Once you have it, I mean, like it could be like really pain in the neck, but once it is, then you can keep renewing it because you have everything in place, and then you can report every year and say this data we used. Now, your another part of the question was that you have used your data in one thing and how you want to use it. Like, can you use it for the other? So you cannot have with the same data the same publication, but you can always use that data in context to other similar data or entirely different data and say, as in my X publication, this based on this data, I found this, but then this university, similar data says this, and then you can analyze. Or you can say, okay, I have used this data, this is what it is in my X paper. Now we are expanding on, and then you can move on and reference to those data. You can do that as well. So there are ways to do it, and that's why like we are here. So if you have anything that you have in mind, and we can do something about it, we can. Sometimes it is good to have a cross-university ethics application approved, and then under that you can be covered, and you can say that no, I have ethics, and there are, I think, I haven't done it a lot, but I think there is a mutual agreements among universities that one university has given ethics approval, then you just have a very formal some forms to do at your university and say this is what I'm doing in here. So that's the way to deal with the data that you have. You can entirely use metadata and not touch the data, and then you can say, yeah, this is what I'm. So it is about like what problem are you solving and how you want to do that. So that's thing. Um, uh, as Sue mentioned, it was like imposter syndrome, right? Like, am I like, is it worth it? And that's where I think the leader of the team is an important place to be, and you encourage your staff. I'm talking about just 1 week ago, somebody who sent me an abstract and say, this is what I'm going to put in ASCII-Lite. Could you please have a look and provide feedback? I did. And then next day she got back to me and said, sorry, my manager said that I cannot do this. And so I'll have to find something else. Now, if you have a manager who will impede your growth, you have to reconsider. But there are also ways to do things. So do it with others, and make it as a group so that your managers don't have like entire say on it, on what you do, because you are just writing a small part of a big a chunk of text. So there are ways to do it, starting small. So I was also thinking that you can start with like forums, community of practices, workshops, showcases, all the little things first to gain that confidence and say, oh,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like I want quite often I thought that who wants to listen to me and my ideas, But when I started sharing, people are interested. So then that gives a little bit of confidence. They're like, yeah, because people are interested. It's just you have to get through that mindset saying, no, 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 people are interested and all of that. So start small, and that provides some sort of like a confidence. And if you see somebody in your team has problems with that confidence, you can ask them to go ahead and find a mentor. And ASCII-Lite does it, it's community mentoring program, and there are other lot of people who does different ways, like even personal mentoring. So we can hook them up with somebody who can do the mentoring. Time constraint is like the biggest thing, Penny, as you mentioned, but just put in like calendar. So Kate and I, when we do work together, she does her work, I do my work, but we still have a meeting. And so just shut up and write. That kind of, it is hard because everybody else takes over your time and calendar, but you can just, I think one of the biggest problem, which you haven't mentioned, is funding. So you have fantastic thing to share, and the ASCII-Lite, for example, is happy to publish that and say, come and just present in a conference. You want to go, but you don't have funding. So I'm glad that most of the conferences are hybrid now, so you can do it online, so you can save on travel and accommodation. But still, some of the ideas, like I have some ideas around designing an app which never materialized because I don't have the funding and I don't know how to design apps. So there are like limitations on, but then you have to find ways to kind of like, there are also, and I think we discussed that there are structural and cultural barrier as well. So structural barrier in terms of like your team managers, institutional culture, kind of support you receive from your institution to go ahead and present, even if it has no cost. Some people, like I know institution where they don't let people put their names onto something that they write, authorship. So those are, and somebody has to go up and go to them and say, no, that's not fair. But that's a different ideological battle that we have to fight. But it's a structural barrier. And to avoid that, just co-author with someone and publish somewhere else if your institution is, not doing the right thing or anywhere. So yeah, I think those are like, things that you can, yep, Penny?
Just in coming back to Jubin was saying that, is that right? That, like I'm doing all this fantastic work with all these innovative people. And so that barrier of, well, wouldn't we need ethics? Well, yes, to go beyond the institution or if it's going to be recorded and published. So I guess there is that sharing within university communities of practice that you've got. In terms of the ethics, now I found it really interesting, Kashmira, you talking about that blanket ethics. Now, when I started, say 5 years ago at Deakin, I'm just trying to, find my feet and establish myself as somebody with the opportunity to begin to do research at that stage. And somebody suggested to me for things like studying your own practice and using methodology such as self-study, which is popular in schools of education, practitioner research, or of that kind of type. And it was suggested to me that I could do a blanket ethics for this. Now, I mean, some universities and institutions, it wasn't really considered that you needed to do ethics for things like self-study at a time. Well, times changed, and more things were being recognized as we probably want an ethics for this. Or people might say, oh, I'm doing an autoethnography and we don't have to do it because it's just about myself. Well, I don't know, like those days are kind of gone. There's less that kind of slips through that. Can I write a personal reflection? Is that okay? Uh, the question's up in the air. And with that blanket, in terms of the detail that you need to provide to an ethics committee, I just didn't really know how to make something general. And I went, well, why don't I achieve one that is one first on a specific thing? Because I found it too challenging to write a blanket ethics when I'd never achieved, a specific in that area. And I'm like, can I just get it for this one part of it, as
Yeah.
my first stepping stone?
Yeah.
I have done it
Sorry,
before.
Kashmira. Sorry, Kashmira, Penny. We are at 1 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
sorry.
just we've got such an engaging conversation going on, and I do understand that maybe people might need to go to other meetings, etc. But I do want to wrap up, but that's okay. But having said that, I think we've got our names. You know who to contact. We're happy to have this conversation, continue conversation around this. Absolutely, I think that ethics is one of those Pandora box that's kind of, you've every institute is all different around this. But I do want to just summarize and end this. Thank you to everybody, Kashmira, Kate, everyone in this room, Sue, Penny, Juven, George, who's just joined in as well. Absolutely great conversation. Please do continue to stay connected. We're here to support you. So please do email, contact us. We're happy to have this conversation offline as well. It's been wonderful so far. And thank you so much for joining us here today. Recording will be available, but please do feel free to contact us.
Yeah, and also like next one is on 5th of July, I guess. So please stay tuned to our program, the LinkedIn group where everything is advertised.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.